Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome to our coffee times. Today I bring you yet another movie review, and we are here today to talk about the South Korean movie The Closet.
It's coffee time.
So even though this movie did come out in 2020, I have never heard anybody really talking about it. I didn't even know this movie existed until like yesterday. I saw it on my Amazon Prime as a new movie that was added. And I was like, wait, this is from 2020, it's horror, and it's South Korean, so I have to watch this. So this is Asian horror, so it's not going to be a movie for everybody. I did see it had kind of lower ratings, but I tried to make up my own opinion, and so I decided to give it a try. Before we go into the spoiler-free review part of the video, if you love horror and movies, please consider subscribing to the channel and also click on the notification bell so you're notified every time that we have a new coffee time. The Closet is a 2020 South Korean horror film. It is kind of like a ghost possession story written and directed by Kim Kwon-bin. The film actually starts with something very interesting that you don't see done too often, and that is we get kind of like old footage that seems to have been recorded with an old camera, and it's a small frame, and we can see a group of people performing some sort of like traditional ritual to get rid of spirits or to contact spirits. And after that little snippet, that is when the actual real movie starts. But that little part that we see at the beginning, it's going to make sense towards the end. We follow an architect that after losing his wife in a car accident is kind of having trouble moving on. He doesn't know exactly what to do with his young daughter that is also grieving the loss of the mom, and he kind of tries to overcompensate with presents like dolls and empty promises. He doesn't really know how to navigate this new situation, and he decides to move with his daughter into this new house, going to start a new job. It's kind of like a, you know, the typical fresh start that you get in horror movies. So the moment they move into the house, a bird crashes against the window, which is already telling you this is bad luck. We start to understand the father and the daughter. So the daughter is crying, she doesn't want to eat, she's having trouble, she really misses her mom, and the father still has a lot of panic attacks because he keeps kind of remembering the accident and going over and over the images of that fatal accident. One day the daughter hears some knocking that appears to be coming from inside her closet, and after that she starts to behave weirdly, like not like she used to behave before, and the father just assumes that is because of the stress, you know, of the situation, losing her mom. But then the father also starts hearing things, having nightmares, until one day when he wakes up from one of these nightmares, his daughter has mysteriously disappeared. So one of my favorite things about this film is actually the dynamic that our two main characters are going to have. So the father and a character that is introduced later on into the movie, that is the exorcist that is going to try to help him to get his daughter back. So this exorcist character, he was my favorite from this film because he was like dead serious when he had to be, but he also was kind of used for the comical relief in this film, and I just found myself laughing sometimes with him, and it was done in a really good way. Like, it was not stupid, it was not like too much, like overly done. It was actually pretty good, and I really loved him as a character. Now, this is an Asian horror film, so I have the impression that for Asians, horror films, they approach them in a different way, and the way that they have to express emotions in this film is also different from other countries. And I do feel like in a lot of these horror movies that they always focus a lot on grief and loss and losing a loved one, and this is exactly the case, the same situation that we have with this film. The film does include some creepy moments, some like disturbing imagery, but I didn't feel like the purpose of this film was to really scare the viewer. I don't think this movie was done to scare people. There is not many jump scares really, so I appreciated that. Another thing that caught my attention was that most of the film, the colors were kind of cold colors, like blues and some faded greens and some, you know, grays and stuff like that. But then there were some punctual moments where the kid, the little girl, had a red dress on, and I realized those were really like important moments in the film. So I investigated. I decided to look up if the color red had any specific meaning in South Korea, and I did find something interesting. So the color red in South Korea does have different meanings, but one of them, it's exorcism. I did find that very interesting. And it said for a long time the color red has been believed to be shamanistic power for warding off evil spirits or bad luck. People have protected themselves against bad energy by using red. So I thought this was really nice. I mean, maybe not everybody is going to wonder about why whenever something important happens this girl is dressed in red. But I did notice and I kind of investigated, so there you go. The color red had apparently a very important meaning in this film. While I was watching the movie, I actually thought to myself, this is like a South Korean take on Poltergeist. That is exactly how I would describe this film. And this movie had a very deeper meaning. Like the more I was, you know, watching the movie, the more I realized that it was not all about the horror, but about a study on grief and loss. And also it had a deeper meaning on how we treat our children, how parents treat their children. And this was such an interesting take for a horror movie, honestly. And I thought it was very brave to do that, because most people are not going to enjoy this film because it's not your typical horror movie, you know, your ABC. However, it did include some horror tropes which some people might find annoying. It did have a couple of moments that, you know, it's kind of predictable. Honestly, the film was well acted, well directed, it had good production. I enjoyed it. But I have to be real here, it's not going to be for everybody, especially if you don't typically like Asian horror. This one is definitely not for you, because it's one of those that it kind of, you know, mixes a couple of different genres and ends up not being your conventional horror story. So I ended up giving this movie 3 out of 5 stars, which is a very good rating because I did enjoy it a lot. I think, like I said, you know, it was well shot, well acted, well directed, well edited. I know it had some things that you could predict, but the story was kind of different from other movies that I have seen, and I was engaged. I wanted to know, you know, the background of the things that were happening, because everything is explained, and it's not just, you know, one of those movies that it's just there for the scares and the jump scares and all of that. Like, it has a deeper meaning. It's kind of like a study on grief with some horror splashes to it, and I really did enjoy the exorcist as a character. I absolutely loved him. So for me, you know, this was a really nice movie. Like, of course it's not your typical 5 stars, but I also don't think that it deserves the lower ratings that it's getting. So if you like Asian horror, I do recommend you to give it a try. Alright guys, so this was my spoiler-free review of the movie The Closet. Let me know down below if you have already watched the movie and what you thought of it, or if you like Asian horror at all. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and if you want to follow me on other social media, as always the links are down below. And I hope to see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!